with Corey Alexander. I'm Anish Shroff. Nate Britt knocks down the jumper to put UNC on top of Monmouth 8-7. Tar Heels come into the game 11-2. They won the Maui Invitational. Only losses to Kentucky, a neutral court game, and at Indiana. Here's Justin Robinson, the reigning Conference Player of the Year in the MAC. And he's got 6 early for the Monmouth Hawks, who have won 9 straight, a school record. Kennedy Meeks off the feed from Justin Jackson. Meeks off to a fast start.
And that's just traditional North Carolina secondary fast break. The same offense that King Rice ran when he was running the show for the Tar Heels. And everyone knows it's coming, but it's still difficult to defend, especially when you have the size up front that the Heels have on their front line.
Chris Brady shot no good, trying to go over Meeks. Back inside, Meeks through the contact and one. Kennedy Meeks, 18 points, 8 rebounds last time out.
Presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Angry Orchard Hard Cider. Branch out.
Watching the ACC on ESPN, the early star for North Carolina, big man Kennedy Meeks. He's coming off an 18 points, 8 rebound outing through the first 4 minutes and 5 seconds, 8 points, 3 rebounds. Carolina making a concerted effort to go inside.
And it'll be extremely difficult for Monmouth to be able to match up with Kennedy Meeks. Although Chris Brady has the size, Kennedy Meeks' skill level allows him to be able to dominate in the post. And not only when you're throwing him the basketball, he'll go get it off the glass and then carving out position under the basket and using the rim as protection to finish. Kennedy Meeks off to a great start, and not only scoring the basketball, but on the boards as well.
He comes into this game averaging close to a double-double. Before he went to break, he was fouled by Chris Brady, and Meeks will shoot 1 free throw here on the continuation. And he's got 9 for the Tar Heels.
And one of the things we talked about earlier was North Carolina can't get caught up in running for 3-pointers. You know, their style of play under Coach Roy Williams is solely about getting the ball inside, paint touches, and then they'll shoot the 3, but they often like to play inside out. That's been a staple of the way Roy Williams has coached for 30-plus years, and now in his 14th season at North Carolina.
They're a pretty good 3-point shooting team this year, 38%. That one blocked by Diego Quinn, but we've got a whistle. And it'll be a goaltend against Monmouth. King Rice, the head coach at Monmouth, a former Tar Heel point guard, was recruited to UNC by a Tar Heel assistant at the time named Roy Williams.
And also played against Roy Williams in the 1991 Final Four, King's last college basketball game. So these two have a lot of history. It goes back, saw actually sitting down together doing a little chalk talk, catching up on old times before the game started.
Pierre Sarr, number 1, into the game for Monmouth. As there's a foul on the floor, Seaborn was taking it to the basket. And this was before the game. King Rice, Roy Williams, they reminisced to us about their time together. King Rice said it was very difficult to see Roy Williams on the sideline for Kansas in that 91 Final Four. And Roy told us he never looked over at the UNC bench once that game.
In a game that Roy Williams' Kansas team won, and also Dean Smith actually ejected from that game as we watched Justin Jackson knock down a 3-pointer, where he's so much more improved this season compared to where he's been in his first 2 years in the Carolina uniform.
10 unanswered for North Carolina. Roy Williams telling us he wants to see Justin Jackson continue to be aggressive. Seaborn throws it away, looking for Diego Quinn.
I believe this element of North Carolina's offense is different from what they've had in the past few years. When you have a guy like Justin Jackson, who's been there for those past 2 years, but he wasn't shooting the basketball the way that he is now. He leads North Carolina with 28 3-pointers on the season so far and shooting close to 38%. So when you look at what he's been able to do, it adds a different dimension along with those post presences that they have on the inside.
Here comes Robinson. He's got 6 early, weaves his way through traffic.
And Robinson shooting his first shot long over the basket, and since then he's made 4 straight field goal attempts. So Justin Robinson has settled in at the Dean Dome.
Here's Jackson on the wing. He knocks down his second to three. Jackson had a career-high 34 in that loss to Kentucky recently. He hit 7 threes in a game against Davidson earlier this year. There's the 5'8" Robinson. Right down the lane, swatted away. Blocked that time by the freshman Tony Bradley. He plays limited minutes, but boy, does he make the most of them.
Tony Bradley covering up the rim, but Joe Barry coming up gimp on this play a little bit, and Barry checking his foot. Have to keep an eye on Joe Barry as this goes along. Seven Woods actually coming in as a sub for Barry. We'll have to keep an eye on that because North Carolina doesn't want to have to go into ACC play without Joe Barry on the court.
He's missed 2 games with an ankle injury already this season. This was his 3rd game back as Robinson lines up a 3, and Justin Robinson has 11 points here in the early going.
And we talked about Justin Robinson shooting that first 3-pointer very long. But since then, he got to the basket 4 times, getting easy ones to go down, and then is able to knock down the 3-pointer as King Rice actually switches to a zone defense against Carolina. Been unable to guard them in the man-to-man, see if the zone will work.
Quinn tied up Hicks. We have a jump ball. It stays with North Carolina. Joel Berry has left the floor, and that's something we'll keep an eye out for. Less than 10 to shoot. Offensive rebound. Bradley had it knocked away by Robinson. Here's what happened to Berry.
You saw Joe Barry covering the screen, but as he gets there, he takes the knee to the left quad right above his knee, and that hurts significantly. That's major pain right now, and so Joe Barry not on the floor right now, I'm sure getting attended to, but fortunately you would hope that's something that he's able to, come back from. 5 bruises are hard to get rid of, but you can play through them.
And 1. There's the freshman Tony Bradley. He's only playing about 17 minutes per game, but averaging 9 points and 6 rebounds.
But Roy Williams talked to us about as he got older and more experience in the North Carolina program, he felt like he would be able to stay on the court in times when they're playing against smaller lineups that like to spread the floor and shoot 3-pointers. But that's part of the reason why he hasn't played as many minutes. But he's been extremely productive in the minutes he's been given this season.
Here's Austin Tillman in the game for Monmouth with Pierre Sarr, Jalon Hornby, Colin Stewart, and Diego Quinn. Quinn can't handle the pass. 4 turnovers for the Hawks. Jackson's hit 2 threes. That's his 3rd.
And how about the confidence that Justin Jackson is playing with, and more importantly, shooting the basketball from the perimeter.
On Thursday, we have a bowl triple header for you on ESPN, starting with South Florida and South Carolina in the Birmingham Bowl. That's at 2 Eastern. Then it's Arkansas, Virginia Tech in the Belk Bowl at 5:30. What a first season in Blacksburg for Justin Fuente. Oklahoma State and Colorado in the Valero Alamo Bowl. Winner of that game likely finishes the year in the top 10. Corner 3 by Kenny Williams is good.
And when you watch North Carolina shoot the basketball this way, you have to think back for the past 2 seasons almost. This was the team that couldn't shoot straight. Last year, a school record low as Bradley comes up with another block. A school record low, 32.7% from beyond the 3-point arc, shooting 38% this year, and they seem to be getting better as the season goes along. It's the Tar Heels raining threes. Justin Jackson with his 3rd 3 already in this game as the Heels lead by 15.
Joel Berry has missed 2 games with an ankle injury. He left the floor momentarily in this first half, has returned to the North Carolina bench, and boy, is he vital to this offense.
Extremely important. You know, you look at the numbers and you see their offense is just completely different with him in charge of it, and it becomes in a number of areas. One, defensively, they score more points off of their defense because of him being in passing lanes, and then as an on-ball defender coming up with steals. But he's also their leading three-point shooter as far as percentage. So when you have him on the court, he gives you those different dimensions. It makes it easier for your team to score.
Foul on Pierre Sarr, his first, team's fourth. Fifth team foul, check that.
Brandon Robinson checking into the game. Immediate impact.
That's Isaiah Hicks going strong, and he'll shoot two.
Everyone gets excited when you see Isaiah Hicks with an opportunity at a rim like that. The athlete that he is, there's a highlight in the making when Isaiah Hicks gets that type of run in that space at the rim.
Foul on Diego Quinn, his first.
Diego Quinn knew that too, which is the reason why he fouled him. He did not want to be on the wrong side of a SportsCenter top 10 here tonight.
A 22-5 run for UNC. You watch Hicks this season, the rebounding numbers, Roy Williams would probably like to see those go up. And as you alluded to, if he can stay on the floor, that's half the battle.
That's it. You know, and honestly, had he not had his issues with foul trouble, we probably wouldn't have seen the emergence of Tony Bradley the way that we have. So it's kind of a silver lining. But if you're Roy Williams, you want all of those guys to be available as much as possible. And Luke May really hasn't gotten going the way that we've expected him to. So it's truly four quality post presences for North Carolina that they can play, and Roy Williams trusts at this point of the season as they head into conference play.
17-point lead for the Heels. Tapped around near the rim. Quinn out of New York City rips down the rebound. Here's Tillman. Down the lane, he gets tied up, gets it back, and he is fouled. It's on Isaiah Hicks, his first.
You know, Coach Williams told us that although Isaiah Hicks, and because of his foul trouble over his previous 3 years at North Carolina, he sees more calls that he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt on. And he's not blaming officials or anything like that. He's just saying that he's often just found in the wrong place at the wrong time. And even if it's two guys around, the foul goes on Hicks instead of the other player. And he really hasn't seen this before, especially with a guy that's been that important to their lineup. But as the season goes along, he would love to see Isaiah Hicks kind of stay away from the silly fouls so that he can be more aggressive in his time on the court and not have to spend as much time on the bench in foul trouble.
Now you look at his numbers from last year, wasn't playing a ton behind Bryce Johnson, but you extrapolate those numbers to 30 or 40 minutes and you can stack them up with any big man in the ACC.
Absolutely. And Isaiah Hicks' energy and his effort, you see right there, that's not even a design play. It's just his athleticism. You think you can throw the ball over top of everyone else and he can go get it, even though it doesn't come away with points. That presence back there makes it easier for guys on the wings to be able to get shots because they always have to stay attached to Hicks and keep a body on him on the glass.
There's Josh James, not much of a scorer for Monmouth. Robinson is. He's got 11 already in this first half. That one doesn't fall, rebounded by Hicks. And North Carolina will go back to the free throw line.
Seventh Woods pushing the basketball, getting out in transition, calling his own number there, seeing a bit of a crack in the Monmouth defense, then picking up the foul.
Seventh Woods, a freshman from South Carolina, #1 player in the state coming out of high school. And this guy growing up was a basketball prodigy as Joel Berry gets ready to check back into the game for UNC.
And you mentioned Seventh Woods. A lot of it had to do with his highlight level dunks. I mean, his athleticism's off the charts, and we really haven't seen that athleticism since he's been at North Carolina. And oftentimes it takes freshmen a while to adjust to the speed of the game. But if he gets back to doing the type of things that he was doing that made him a YouTube sensation in high school, look out, Carolina fans.
Tillman has found no room going up against the Carolina defense on the inside. Corner three, not there. Offensive rebound by Meeks. And it's tipped to Stewart. Another turnover by Monmouth. That is 7. Brandon Robinson's pass was kicked. Robinson, another freshman. Top 60 prospect coming out of high school, who had a reputation as a three-point shooter.
And Robinson and Woods, both very good players and will be really good for North Carolina. But when you substitute and come back into the game with Joe Barry and Justin Jackson, your offense immediately improves just because of the amount of respect that these two guys command when they're on the court.
Barry kicks it to Kenny Williams. Inside to Hicks. His pass to Meeks knocked away. Good defense there by Monmouth. One more bowl game for you tonight on ESPN. Texas A&M and Kansas State. These two used to be Big 12 rivals. It's the Advocare V100 Texas Bowl tonight on ESPN at 9 Eastern. Jackson from the corner.
That was a heat check right there. Justin Jackson checked out of the game after making 3 3-pointers already. When he got back in, he had to make sure he was still hot.
Sam Abizabe blocked by Meeks. He gets it back. Seaborn the three, too strong. Another rebound by Abizabe. James thought about it. That doesn't fly from Hornbeak. Only one field goal in more than 4 minutes for Monmouth. Robinson the steal. Robinson spinning, and he traveled.
Great call by Les Jones right there on top of that. Robinson with the extra step off of the spin move. But North Carolina has gotten a little stagnant. A number of turnovers in their past few possessions. And you looked at them early. Kennedy Meeks was getting going very well on the interior, and they were making 3-pointers. But since they made the substitutions, their offense has got just a little bit stale.
Hornbeak the rebound. Down the lane, left hand, and he'll draw the foul. One thing we have seen from UNC in this first half is a continuation of the Northern Iowa game. They held UNI to 42 points, just 16 in the second half. That defensive intensity is carried over. And listen, Roy Williams, the staple of his teams, it's always been breakneck speed, putting up big numbers offensively. We're starting to see a defensive blueprint too.
Well, I believe a lot of that has to do with, if you look at this North Carolina team, and the reason that they don't have a ring as national championships is because they had a breakdown defensively. Chris Jenkins getting wide open for that 3-pointer that won the national championship. That's a breakdown defensively. Roy Williams can say until he's Carolina blue in the face, we got to play defense, we got to play defense. But until the players take onus on it, it doesn't matter.
It'll stay with Carolina, 31-17 UNC. Tar Heels 11-2, only losses to Indiana and Kentucky. Monmouth has won a school record 9 in a row. Joel Berry for 3. Offensive rebound and the putback by Kenny Williams.
We mentioned earlier, North Carolina is second nationally in offensive rebound percentage. And it's not only about Kennedy Meeks, Isaiah Hicks, and Tony Bradley, although Tony Bradley is the national leader in offensive rebound percentage. Kenny Williams, the guards, Justin Jackson, they attack the offensive glass as well. North Carolina uses that as an additional part of their offense. So when they don't make shots, they chase it down every opportunity.
Luke May, the 15-footer, not there. Here's Josh James, who scored that last basket for Monmouth. James tried another one. King Rice told us he lets his players have the green light to shoot, even ones who are not shooters, as in the case of Josh James.
And he said that simply because he didn't want any of his guys to not feel their best on the court because he's telling them not to shoot. And he said it with a bit of, I won't say bitterness, but it's almost a sore subject with him because he was the guy that was often told not to shoot when he was in college.
He was a past first point guard. He played for Dean Smith. Proud Tar Heel roots for King Rice. We'll visit with those on the other side. Rice, back in the flat top days, was a North Carolina point guard. He was a tri-captain as a senior, was on the 91 Final Four team. And that Final Four team that Carolina had in 91 lost to Kansas. The head coach at Kansas was Roy Williams, but it was Williams when he was a UNC assistant who recruited King Rice, and we had a chance to talk to both coaches this week. Both of them talked about how difficult that Final Four game was, but Roy Williams told us when recruiting King Rice, the one tangible that he was able to find very early on in the recruiting process, he saw a leader.
He saw a leader because he went and actually watched him play high school football on Friday night and then watched him play a rec league game on Saturday morning. So kind of a dual threat with King Rice. And, you know, I can remember as a young player growing up and watching King Rice, and more importantly seeing him in the Street and Smith magazine as a McDonald's All-American before he went into North Carolina, and just reading so much about him and knowing that he was a tremendous leader then.
Jackson's got 11 for the Tar Heels. There's Justin Robinson. He's got 11 to lead the way from Monmouth. Inside, Brady wearing number 45 today instead of his customary 43.
And he hasn't fared well with 45. I'd be asking for my original jersey back at halftime because he's had his hands full with his front line from North Carolina.
There's Jackson, kicks to Berry. Three-pointer is not there. Tap back to Britt. He hits the deck. New 30 for UNC. Jackson with his fourth three. Fifth game this season where Justin Jackson has hit at least 4 3-pointers.
But King Rice, who has been no stranger to getting upset on the sideline, was extremely upset when the travel was not called on Nate Britt when he fell down after picking up the offensive rebound. And with traveling being such a point of emphasis this year, I believe King Rice may have had a point on that one.
Jackson, another three. Oh! He is on fire in this first half. 17 for the junior from Texas.
Anish, we'll revisit earlier in the game where I said Justin Jackson's ability to shoot the three has added another dimension to the North Carolina offense, and we've seen it in so many different aspects in this first half. Justin Jackson, who struggled from beyond the three-point arc in his first 2 years in the Carolina uniform, has changed some things, and it is working for 44 in white and Carolina blue.
Roy Williams told us he spent a lot of the offseason working on that shot. And UNC fans have been waiting for a couple of years to see this version of Justin Jackson, more of a complete player, more of a threat from the perimeter. And when he's knocking down his threes and you've got Joel Berry on the court, and if Kenny Williams is hitting his shot, well, all of a sudden that opens up things on the inside for the likes of Hicks and Kennedy Meeks.
And with the interior presence that they have, when you got a guy that can stretch the floor that well, it makes you virtually unguardable because you have to pick, where do you want to get beat? Do you want to allow Meeks and Hicks and Bradley to pick you apart on the inside, or do you want to give those looks to Jackson and Berry, who are shooting so well from beyond the three-point arc?
Micah Seaborn bumped on the perimeter by Britt. That's 2 on Nate Britt. 6th team foul on North Carolina. Joel Berry to the bench. Here comes Robinson, splits the defense in traffic. That's a Jersey driver, Corey.
You know what? I heard you in the opening talking about South Jersey was the southern part of heaven. Only people from Jersey say that.
No, Chapel Hill is the southern part of heaven.
Oh, okay.
Monmouth,
I got you. All right.
West Long Branch, New Jersey. That's Paulie D territory, Jersey Shore territory.
Well, you're a Jersey guy, so I thought you were referring to your home state, as the southern part of heaven.
No, that's Chapel Hill. I have no I have no designs.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to agree with Chapel Hill either, but that's coming from a Virginia guy.
That's right. Fouls on Stillman White. His second rather. Micah Seaborn at the free throw line for Monmouth. Seaborn, the rookie of the year in the MAC a season ago, averaged 13 points per game, 39% from three. Hits the front end of a 1-and-1. Has had an up and down start to his redshirt sophomore year. King Rice telling us maybe put a little too much pressure on himself after the expectations he created last year.
Well, you know, in talking to King Rice, I loved how he described the way he goes about allowing his players to play and just giving them the freedom to play offensively because they play so hard defensively. You know, and also, you know, the thing for him was, hey, this is not the way that I played. And I asked him about that. I said, you were not that type of guy. Well, how did you get to that point? And he talked about his experiences at North Carolina, which he relishes. He loves his experience at North Carolina, but he did not like the fact that he was that guy. And admittedly, he said he couldn't shoot, so he was the guy that got a lot of shots. But speaking of getting shots, Monmouth has struggled offensively, but that has not been the case for Justin Robinson. He has been able to have his way early in this first half. As Robinson comes down the spin move, and when you got a guy this difficult to play against with the green light that he has, it's hard for a guy like Nate Britt to be able to stay in front, which he did, and still contest the shot without the contact.
15 for Robinson. Nate Britt picked up his third foul. King Rice telling us how he recruited Robinson everywhere he went, and he saw Robinson, smallest guy on the court, but he produced. There were some academic issues coming out of high school, and King Rice told him, if you get your grades in order as Isaiah Hicks finishes, we'll have a scholarship for you at Monmouth. And Robinson gave him a long stink eye, essentially saying, are you sure, coach? And King Rice was almost scared by how long that stare down lasted.
Well, I'm not going to say scared, but he was a little put off by it because he had Justin Robinson, the young man he just offered, giving him the mean mugging him right to his face for like 30 seconds. King Rice ain't scared of much, I'm going to tell you that. But he didn't particularly take to that very well. But these two guys have built a great chemistry and relationship over the past 3+ years.
And Robinson's second semester on campus, Dean's List. As Stillman White knocks down the shot to the applause of this crowd. It'll stay with Monmouth. 3:44 to go in the first half. It's been a Carolina clinic so far. UNC 6 of 11 from deep, doing it on the inside as well. All right, thank you, gentlemen. 3:44 to go here in the first half. Final non-conference tune-up for North Carolina before ACC play begins. Monmouth already a couple of conference games under its belt. They've got some work to do if they are to extend the longest winning streak in school history. But this is a Hawks team that has beaten 6 high major teams since the start of last season.
Absolutely. And King Rice, you know, coming in and taking over the program at Monmouth, struggled for the first 3 years, but then they got things going, and as he built, you know, some equity in his older players and allowed these guys to play a freer style of basketball, they have been a problem for teams. You know, even this year, they don't have those big wins. They did go get a win at Memphis, but they lost at South Carolina in an overtime game by 1, went to Syracuse and lost there. Those are their only 2 losses on the year, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that after what they did last season, teams aren't going to play Monmouth in the non-conference schedule anymore. They don't want to risk taking a loss to Monmouth, and King Rice, his teams have shown they can go out and get wins.
North Carolina has Final Four potential. They were in the championship game a season ago. Monmouth is a team to keep in the back of your mind when filling out that bracket later. If they can come out of the MAC, this is one of the deeper and better teams this league has seen in quite some while.
And they can be scary in an NCAA tournament because of their ability to shoot the basketball. And when you've got a guy like Justin Robinson who can score the way he does and facilitate for others as well, that's a tough out, especially when you're playing in an NCAA tournament setting where you don't have that familiarity of playing against the same teams.
Jackson rips away the rebound from Sarr. 17 for Justin Jackson, 5 threes in the first half. Tony Bradley down low. He'll shoot 2. Foul is on Chris Brady, his second.
We talk about scoring guards. There's one in the crowd tonight for the Tar Heels. One of my boys, teammate in the McDonald's All-American game. My man Boone, a.k.a. Donald Williams, UNC guard. I won't call him a point guard. He was a scorer, big-time scorer, but member of that 1993 National Championship team.
What a great run he had in that tournament and that championship game.
Absolutely, and a great guy, North Carolina native from the state, stayed home and played for the Tar Heels, won a national championship, along with Derek Phelps and Brian Reese. I got an opportunity to see both those guys over in Hawaii this past week, who were both assistant coaches for King Rice. Now Derek Phelps has moved on to San Francisco, Brian Reese at Illinois State, but they were actually both assistants for King Rice 3 seasons ago as he was starting to turn this program around for Monmouth.
Foul on Chris Brady, his third. Donald Williams, by the way, in that Final Four in '93, 10 for 14 from three-point land in the semifinals and a championship game.
Maybe that's the secret to Justin Jackson's success this year. I mean, and Boone has been hanging around the Carolina program a lot here recently. That's one of the staples of North Carolina and their basketball program. The alumni that return and live in Chapel Hill and get an opportunity to mentor and be around these young men is tremendous. Rasheed Wallace still lives in Chapel Hill. Shamon Williams, before he went back to coaching, was staying in Chapel Hill. You got a lot of guys that stayed there. Hubert Davis was actually living in Chapel Hill even when he was on TV and coming back. So, of course, it was just coming back home for him when he returned when he went to the staff for Roy Williams.
Southern part of heaven, Corey. Beautiful place.
I'm still not going with that. You're not going to get me to admit to that. Just because they're Carolina sky blue doesn't mean it's heaven.
Ball gets stuck on the rim as Hornbeek tossed up a layup. Possession arrow Monmouth. Tonight, after the Advocare V100 at Texas Bowl, SportsCenter at night with Neil Everett. They'll recap all the bowl games as well as the NBA, NHL, college hoops, NFL news, and anything else that breaks on this Wednesday night. Here's Pierre Sarr from Senegal in there for his defense. Long three is good. Micah Seaborn, last year's MAC Rookie of the Year, had 8 threes in a game against South Carolina State earlier as Sarr comes away with the steal. Seaborn again inside the arc in the paint, shovels to Sarr. Less than 2 minutes to play in the opening half, all Carolina. Robinson's been the bright spot for Monmouth. He's blocked by Bradley. And the 5'8" senior gets it back. Less than 10 to shoot. And a traveling violation. 10 first half turnovers for Monmouth. Jackson. Bounce pass to Hicks, stolen away by Sarr.
And Monmouth actually has settled in here defensively and been better. And now as they are starting to make a couple of three-pointers, and now a 13-point game, which looked like it was going to be a blowout early for North Carolina. Monmouth has fought back to make this a competitive game, now on a 6-0 run. And Justin Jackson's unable to finish. And they've done a better job. And North Carolina's had their opportunities on the boards, but haven't been able to finish many of them.
Here's Hornbeek, hit that last three, 2 in a row, and it's a 10-point game.
And this is a Monmouth team that has 3 wins this year after coming back from double-digit deficits. So they're never going to be out of a game, especially when you've got a guy like Hornbeek who's shooting 52% from 3. They're never going to be out of it as King Rice encourages his team along the baseline. You see more smiles on the sideline for Monmouth. And their ability to shoot the basketball from the outside is always going to keep them in the games. And you look at it, over 9.7 three-pointers made per game. And just like that, this game has become competitive again with that great equalizer of the three-point shot.
Brandon Robinson at the free throw line after the foul by Last week against Princeton, had 25 points, 10 rebounds, both career highs. You mentioned 52% from three. He had made 30 of his last 50 coming into this game. That's 60%.
That's 60%, and that means you got to find a way to get more shots. That's the way I look at it. I'm not sure if that's the way that everyone looks at it. But when you're shooting the ball that well, you got to hunt opportunities. And because what that does is makes the defense have to guard you and opens up opportunities for your teammates.
Stewart's three is off the mark. Carolina has the ball, about a half-second differential between the game clock and the shot clock.
But after the way this game started and Carolina getting out to that huge run, King Rice has to be happy with the way his team has fought back here to close the first half.
Here's May, now Berry. 10 on the shot clock, a little more on the game clock. Berry working on Stewart, down the lane, gobbled up. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, Seaborn puts it up and gets it to go! A 12-2 run by Monmouth to close the first half. North Carolina goes into the locker room up by 9, but the Hawks have turned this into a game.
And now a single-digit game, and we saw King Rice encouraging his team on the bench. They stayed positive when things weren't going their way. King Rice called the timeouts necessary. And then, of course, when you have shots like this going your way into halftime, you have to feel good about where your momentum is coming into the second half.
Seaborn, Hornbeak, and Robinson all in double figures for Monmouth. Justin Jackson with 17 leading the way for the Heels. Here's Brendan in the studio. You're watching the ACC on ESPN, ready for the start of the second half here at the Dean Dome. North Carolina led by as many as 19 in the first half, but a late run by Monmouth turned this into a 9-point game going into the second 20 minutes.
Well, the story has been three-pointers for both of these teams in the first half. 7 threes for Monmouth, 6 for North Carolina, and it was Justin Jackson and his ability to shoot the ball from beyond the arc that allowed North Carolina to get out to that huge lead. But Justin Robinson was able to score at will early for Monmouth, and he was the only offense until his teammates got involved and started knocking down a couple of threes to make this game competitive. Of course, Seaborn with the 3 at the buzzer to make it a single-digit game, and now Carolina has its hands full.
The top 3 scores for Monmouth combined for 37 of the team's 41. Jackson, 5 3-pointers, 2 shy of his career high that he set earlier this month against Davidson. And Carolina, especially early, was dominant in the paint.
They were. They got the ball to Kennedy Meeks early. He was in double figures early in the first half, but once they got away from that and everything went, Meeks got to 9 points early, but when they got away from that and started settling for 3-pointers, it allowed Monmouth to get some easy opportunities in transition, more importantly, finding looks. And because of that, I'm sure we'll see Roy Williams trying to get the ball inside early in the second half.
Early whistle to start the second half. A foul on Josh James, his second. 5 on the floor for North Carolina, the original starting 5. Berry, Williams, Jackson, Hicks, and Meeks. Hicks, nice feed. Big to big, it's Kennedy Meeks who's got 11.
And there's nothing Monmouth can do about that. When you double team one of the post players from North Carolina, they do a great job of filling in spots, and the other big finds a way to the rim. It makes it extremely difficult to guard them in the post.
Hornbeak doesn't get the bounce. The long rebound to Robinson. Seaborn hit a long-range 3 at the buzzer to end the first half. Through the contact. Brady chases it down.
But 2 offensive rebounds already for Monmouth on the first possession of the second half. Unable to score, but I'm sure that's not something Roy Williams is happy about, is seeing his team come out and give up 2 offensive boards early.
Kenny Williams kicks it out. Hicks right by Brady, who's playing with the 3 fouls. And it's 54-41.
And North Carolina comes out in the second half attacking the rim the same way they did in the first half, which allowed them to build a big lead. We'll see if they remain consistent with doing so. And they have to continue to add the 3-pointer in, but it can't be solely about shooting jump shots when you have guys like Kennedy Meeks and Isaiah Hicks at the rim. And both those guys so good at finishing at the rim, you've got to get them their opportunities.
Kick ball against Monmouth. 16 to shoot. UNC came into this game shooting 49% from the field. Came in averaging 89 points per game. Here's Brady for three. Chris Brady with just his second three-pointer of the season. That was just his sixth attempt. And they got Hornbeek for the foul, his third, second team foul.
And Brady playing without his original jersey and hadn't had much success in the paint. So, again, take it outside the line. See if it's working for you out there. It's been working for the remainder of his teammates, especially in the latter part of the first half. So, and it worked for Brady on that possession.
Jackson leans in, gets the roll.
And in basketball circles, that's what Justin Jackson is known for. His ability to get to the mid-range, shoot floaters, and at 6'8" to finish over bigger defenders. But Justin Jackson is a scorer, but the element that he has added with that three-pointer, already 5 3-pointers in the first half of this game, has made him virtually unguardable. If he continues to play like this, he's going to make the North Carolina Tar Heels a very dangerous team.
Justin Robinson's three, no good. Last foul was on Berry. Joel Berry's second. Berry, entry pass. Meeks looking for help, kicks it back out. Kenny Williams straightaway three off the back iron. And it's chased down by Monmouth. UNC led by as many as 19. 11. Hornbeek. And we got a technical foul against Jelon Hornbeek. A transfer from Oklahoma.
Hornbeek with a very nice move to get to the rim and is able to finish. But I believe he wanted a call on that. And whatever he said to the official was not the right thing to say to the official, because it's going to give North Carolina an opportunity at the other end to put points on the board without Monmouth having a chance to play defense.
And that's big now. Hornbeek, who has been Monmouth's second best player of late, he now has 4 fouls.
And that in itself makes him less aggressive. King Rice actually going to leave him out there right now, but I'm sure it won't be for long, because you can't allow Hornbeek, I believe he's coming out now, you can't allow him to play out there because it's difficult for him to be aggressive, especially defensively, with 4 fouls, as important as he is to this team with close to 18 minutes left to go in this game.
Some light pressure by Monmouth, down by a dozen. Final non-conference game for UNC before ACC play begins on New Year's Eve in Atlanta against Georgia Tech. 12 to shoot. Meeks, great position down low. And Brady just picked up his 4th.
And that's one of the areas of concern for your team whenever you play against a North Carolina, especially for your front line guys. North Carolina has so much power up front, and their depth is so great. Often, if you only have 1 or 2 guys to throw out there to guard them, you're going to get in foul trouble. And we've seen Brady has battled, but when you have to play against Kennedy Meeks and Isaiah Hicks is on the other side, and you've got Tony Bradley coming off the bench and Luke May, that's a lot for Brady to take on his own. So, you know, 4 fouls for him early. Now, North Carolina got away from going inside. The Tar Heels need to mature at this point and know that they have an advantage on the interior. Take the threes when they're open, but continue to get the ball in the paint.
1 out of 2 for Meeks, but North Carolina extends the possession. Jackson, the 3, his 6th triple of the night.
Anish, I had North Carolina's first regular season game of the year at Tulane. And in warm-ups, I was watching Justin Jackson shoot the basketball. Now, I've been around Justin Jackson with USA Basketball when he was in high school, and seen him, of course, a lot over the last 2 years since he's been at North Carolina. And I noticed the difference then that his shots weren't even hitting the rim.
Basket doesn't count. It's a foul on Quinn, his second. Justin Jackson with 22 for UNC.
And as I was watching him shoot, and just like on this possession where his shot doesn't hit the rim, he did that about 7 to 8 straight times in a row. And it just kind of sent a little idea off my head. I was like, maybe he's put a lot of time in over the summer working on his shot. He comes out and hits about 4 or 5 3-pointers in that game. And since then, he's been just shooting the ball extremely well. And you have to really respect the fact that the work that he put in over the summer to improve his shooting, and more importantly, the confidence that Roy Williams has given him in shooting that basketball by seeing that work that he's put in.
He's the team's leading scorer, almost 17 a game, and Roy Williams told us he'd like to see Justin Jackson be even more aggressive.
And Justin Jackson isn't a guy that's going to go out there and force bad shots, as we see another technical foul on Monmouth. Josh James picking up this one. And for Monmouth, who they played so well to end that first half, you hate to see them losing their composure the way that they are right now and allowing North Carolina just to continue to add points at the free throw line without them having an opportunity to play defense.
This one on Josh James, the other one on Jelon Hornbeek. Berry hits both free throws. Let's see what happens.
Well, just on the lineup, you see James talking. And again, I'm not sure if he's talking to the official or if he's talking to one of the players. But regardless, it had got to be too much. And now King Rice gets teed up.
So 3 technical fouls against Monmouth here in the first 3 minutes of the second half.
And the problem is you're sending Joel Berry to the free throw line, who is somewhat automatic at the line. And now, so you're getting all these points, and you're just allowing North Carolina to be able to extend their lead with you even having a chance. We were talking about a 9-point game at the half, and now it's 20 points, but 6 of those points coming off of the free throw line just with Joel Berry and those 3 technical fouls.
Joel Berry, a 92% free throw shooter.
That's about as close to automatic as you get in college basketball.
And this lead is very quickly mushroomed. Jackson's got 6 threes. Meeks, again, great position. And that's another foul on Diego Quinn, his 3rd, and Kennedy Meeks back to the free throw line.
And again, that concerted effort by the Tar Heels to get the basketball inside, running set plays for Kennedy Meeks, running plays for Isaiah Hicks. The front line for Monmouth doesn't have much depth to be able to defend these guys. Roy Williams knows that. Everyone in Carolina knows that. And as they continue to develop, they know to get the ball inside, allow those big guys to eat early, and that opens everything up for the guys on the perimeter.
This is the 10th free throw attempt already in this half for UNC.
And we haven't played 4 full minutes in the first half, and a lot of that has to do with, Monmouth has lost his composure a little bit. And I understand the emotions of this game for these players and for their coach in King Rice. And King Rice's technical foul was sticking up for his players, but in this scenario, you've got to shy away from it in order to help your guys and continue to give them an opportunity to go out and win on the court.
There's Robinson, 12 to shoot, drives the lane. He'll circle back out. Seaborn, the fadeaway. No good. Hicks skies for the board. 21-point lead for the Heels. They can tack on. Meeks down low around Quinn. It'll stay with UNC. 16:05 to go in the second half. 13-2 North Carolina run. And that's an offensive foul on Kennedy Meeks. Coming up, Roy Williams sounded off after the 3rd notice of allegations to UNC from the NCAA.
Listen, told me if I wanted to tell everybody to talk to him, that they could talk to him. And that's what I'm close to doing, because I'm tired of the junk. I did have one goal, and I'm going to have to change it. I'd hoped that the NCAA thing would be over with before I retired, and now I'm hoping it'll be over with before I die. Thank you very much.
Last week, North Carolina received a 3rd notice of allegations in regards to its academic fraud case from the NCAA. No resolution in sight, although Roy Williams hinting there perhaps at when he might be done as a head coach at North Carolina. And you look at the Hall of Fame coaches in the ACC, they're getting up there in age. One of these years we'll have a changing of the guard in this conference with Coach K and Roy Williams and Boeheim and Pitino no longer there.
And we know what's going to happen with Boeheim. So Coach Hopkins is going to actually take over for Jim Boeheim as a coach in waiting. But we don't know what will happen with those other 3 Hall of Fame coaches at the time where they decide that they no longer want to be on the sideline. So going to be interesting to see as to who steps into those places. But if you're North Carolina, do you consider King Rice as one of those guys that could potentially take over for Roy Williams? And, of course, if I'm at North Carolina, he would definitely be one of the top candidates in my opinion.
Diego Quinn with the putback. So even though King Rice, and he's had great success at Monmouth, helping to get that program back on track, nearly getting them to the tournament a season ago as Hicks slams it home. But would you want to see King Rice at a bigger program before you hand him the keys to UNC?
I think it would be ideal for that to happen, but I don't think that it's necessary. And the reasons I say that it's not necessary, one of the things for certain, the University of North Carolina recruits for itself. And not that the coaches don't have to go out and do the job recruiting, but young men coming up playing high school basketball wait for an offer from the University of North Carolina. They want to play at North Carolina. So the recruiting side of it, as Kenny Williams comes in and gets another offensive rebound to add to the North Carolina lead, the recruiting side of it isn't the most difficult part for the coach at North Carolina. The coaching side of it and managing expectations is probably more difficult, but I believe if you're in North Carolina, you want to stay in the family because of the tradition that was built starting back with Coach McGuire and then, of course, Dean Smith. You want to stay within the family and continuing to build this program into the future.
Colin Stewart, that last 3. Hold that thought.
And by no means am I thinking that Roy Williams is anywhere close to done.
No, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is you seem pretty sure that whenever it is Roy Williams decides to hang it up, North Carolina is going to hire a Carolina guy. Do you not see a possibility they could go elsewhere and find a big-name coach from a different program who does not have any ties to the University of North Carolina?
And they could do that, and, of course, that would definitely be their prerogative. But when you look at the tradition in this basketball program, I would say that staying in-house would probably be a much greater aspect for them, simply because North Carolina as a program is all about loyalty and tradition. So therefore, why would you go outside of when you have such great loyalty, such great tradition, to find a new coach?
Last 3 coaches, Guthridge, Doherty, and Roy Williams, all Carolina alums.
The last one that wasn't was the man who built what is currently the program in Dean Smith. And he was a Kansas alum.
People have forgotten all about that, though. Colin Stewart comes up with the steal. 22-point lead for UNC. Seaborn with the basket. Kennedy Meeks moments ago picked up his 800th career rebound. Kenny Williams can't get it. The tip in by Meeks is there. That's 8:01. And Kennedy Meeks has himself a double-double.
And whenever you can continue to rack up milestones in a program like North Carolina, that's something to be very proud of, as Kenny Meeks picks up his 800th rebound. And Meeks will actually take a seat to an ovation from the crowd at the Dean E. Smith Center. But in revisiting that conversation, when you talk about replacing Roy Williams, whenever he decides that it's time for him to go, you also have guys like a Jeff Lebo. You have Hubert Davis, who's on the staff now. So there are a number of candidates. But I like King Rice, and of course I like Hubert Davis and Lebo as well. But I like King Rice because he was a floor general who played for Dean. Just like Roy Williams, was there with Dean. King Rice is one of those guys. Hubert's one of those guys. Lebo one of those guys. But they understand what this program stands for. And when you talk about the allegations and what they've been through, I think one of the best things about that for me watching is the sense of pride that Roy Williams has taken in being an alumnus of the University of North Carolina and how much it's meant to him to get this situation squared away.
Tillman, the reverse layup. You mentioned that name, Dean Smith, and this will be the last point on this conversation. But in Carolina circles, that's like shaking Sinatra's hand when you have that tie to Dean Smith. And it's something that's important, as we've seen over the last couple of decades when hiring a coach.
And which is the reason why I think it's so important for them to stay within the family and make sure that whoever that next head coach is, once Roy Williams decides that he's done, is part of that Carolina family, someone that played for Dean Smith.
Foul on Luke May, his first 20-point lead for UNC. Tar Heels looking to go to 12-2. Monmouth school record, a 9-game win streak in jeopardy. Justin Robinson, quiet here in the second half, misfires.
And that's where I believe North Carolina has improved. And by no means are they a great defensive team, but Roy Williams has made this team a better defensive team than they've been in the past few years. And because of that, I think they have a chance to hang another banner come April this season.
This exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Samuel Adams. Pursue better.
Monmouth won a school record of 28 games last year, but they rose to national prominence in large part because of the antics of the bench. The bench mob, as it was called. There was the surfboard, some of these great choreographed celebrations. This is my favorite, the heart attack. Daniel Polari, Louis Polari, Greg Nowak, some of the ringleaders. 2 tickets to the gun show, please. The Avengers, I think that's Hawkeye.
Well, and the thing was, and even as he allows his players to play free, you love the way that King Rice allowed those guys to be able to show their personalities on the sideline. And as the bigger it got, the bigger it got. He didn't downplay it.
No.
He allowed them to do that. But the thing was, it was coming in wins. They were winning games. And that's the reason why it was so special, because it wasn't just like it was a sideshow. This was a very good team winning games and enjoying the celebration.
Yeah, they beat Georgetown last year, UCLA, knocked off USC, Rutgers, a Notre Dame team that would go on to the Elite Eight.
I mean, King Rice has done a tremendous job at Monmouth. And one of the greatest measures of a coach is what you do at the end of your first recruiting class's career. So that's normally year 5. Year 5 for King Rice at Monmouth was the best year in program history, and they're on track this year to continue that success. You know, minus this blip in the radar tonight against North Carolina, they came into this game at 10-2. They're off to a great start. They've won 9 straight games, which is, you know, the longest streak in program history. And their 10 wins right now are the most wins in program history at this point of the season. So when you look at those things, King Rice, the job that he's done at Monmouth, after his first 3 seasons, which were pretty much so-so, the last 2 plus, you know, what he's done this year have been tremendous.
Abizabe, the rebound off the Tillman miss, and we've got a foul against Carolina. It's on the freshman Brandon Robinson, his first.
And let's make no mistake, there are very few teams, especially in the non-conference, that come in to the Dean Dome and beat North Carolina. And especially when you've had the success that they've had knocking off those big teams, the Tar Heels were prepared to play tonight. They were not going to come in and allow Monmouth the opportunity to come beat them on their home floor.
Abizabe misses the free throw. Here's Luke May, and he walked. Now this is a Monmouth team that brought back 15 players from a 28-win squad. 9 of the top 10 scores from a season ago returned. Their challenge is, as well as they play in the regular season in the MAC, they're going to have to win that conference tournament. That is usually a one-bid league, and that's what hurt them a year ago. They were still on the bubble despite losing in their conference championship game. But to get into the NCAA tournament, more than likely they will have to win their league tournament.
And they didn't have the non-conference schedule this year that they had last year, so that conference tournament becomes even more important. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that very few high major teams wanted to play Monmouth this year in the non-conference.
Can you blame them?
No, I don't blame them at all. Nobody wants that to happen on their home court, especially with the celebrations going on.
That turns into a 3-minute highlight on SportsCenter. Absolutely. With the celebrations.
And then they put up the final score. Monmouth just beat your high major program, and they celebrated on your court.
7th Woods at the free throw line. Last foul on Micah Seaborn. He's picked up 3 fouls here in the second half. With Corey Alexander and Anish Shroff. UNC led by 19 in the first half. Monmouth closed to within 9. But 3 technical fouls in a 1-minute span early in the second half essentially gave UNC a big cushion. Joel Berry hit a ton of free throws, and Carolina saw its lead mushroom into the 20s, and they have not looked back at 76-55. Tonight at 9 Eastern on ESPN, we've got another bowl game for you. It's the Advocare V100 at Texas Bowl. Texas A&M taking on Kansas State, a couple of 8-4 teams. 2 were former rivals in the Big 12. K-State, Bill Snyder, the questions always loom. Somebody will ask him after this game, are you going to coach next season? And he might be, I don't know, what is he, 77, 78 going on, who knows. Always seems to come back, never seems to lose his touch. 8 wins again for K-State, what he's been able to do in Manhattan. One of the great coaching jobs in all of college football.
And wasn't Texas A&M like ranked in the top 5? And
the first college football playoff rankings that came out, they were number 4.
Got off to a great start this year. And then midway through SEC play just kind of fell off. I believe he started out like 6-0 or 7-0 and then just fell apart at the end of the year.
Lost to Alabama. They were in that game against Bama, and then things kind of fell apart in the second half, and then the season started to go south after that.
8-4 is not a bad record, but in the SEC, and especially after that start, I'm sure there's going to be some questions asked to Kevin Sumlin when the bowl game is over as well about his future with the Aggies.
Yeah, no question.
Which is a problem. The fact that you have to answer that 8-4, which is not a bad year at all. And you're playing in, regardless of whether it was up or down this year, still the toughest conference in college football in the SEC. And yet, 8-4, and you've got to answer questions about whether you're going to be able to keep your job.
Carolina in transition. Hicks could not finish. Hornbeak the other way, and he will shoot 2. Well, in college basketball, that's the ACC. And we have already seen that North Carolina looks like a championship contender again. Duke has played really well, even though we have not seen them at their full Death Star potential. Grayson Allen currently suspended, and they've had injuries to some of their freshmen. Louisville has reloaded after losing some impact graduate transfers from a year ago. Virginia, you suspend or you dismiss Austin Nichols. Their defense looks as good as it's ever been under Tony Bennett. That says a lot. Top to bottom, how many teams could you see the ACC get in? Florida State's another one. They beat Wake Forest earlier tonight.
And
Wake is improved.
Florida State.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, and don't forget about Clemson. Brad Brownell has done a tremendous job, and I honestly believe that Clemson playing back at Little John this year is going to make a difference for them. It's already made a difference in the non-conference schedule, which is what kept them out of the NCAA tournament last year. If they can repeat what they did in the ACC when they were playing at Bon Secours in Greenville last year, and they do the same thing at Little John where they were able to beat 4 ranked teams last year at home, you will see Clemson in the NCAA tournament as well.
Hicks on the inside. You're going to see Virginia Tech this weekend against Duke, and we'll find out just how far Buzz Williams' team has come.
Absolutely. Only one non-conference loss for Virginia Tech as well, so they come into ACC play in very good standing. As we get an opportunity to see some great high-low basketball for North Carolina. Isaiah Hicks able to finish over the rim. But for Virginia Tech, a great challenge for them this Saturday. And you bring in Duke, of course, who is one of the best teams in college basketball. Regardless as to who's there, who's not, they're still as talented or more talented than everyone in the country. I mean, there are only a few teams that can rival their talent. And, you know, they've got arguably the greatest coach in college basketball in history outside of John Wooden, you know, coaching the game right now. So when you look at that, they're always going to have a chance. But Virginia Tech and the way that they play, that's going to be a challenge. And Castle Coliseum is going to be rocking Saturday afternoon at 12.
Seaborn, the steal and layup. 8.5 to go here in half number 2. Jackson with 24 points for North Carolina turns it over. Duke, Virginia Tech, as we mentioned on Saturday. Florida State going to Charlottesville. We will be in Boston on Sunday. Syracuse and BC, those two teams really struggled in non-conference, although BC did have a win against Auburn and beat Providence the other night. Syracuse beat Cornell last night, but boy, they have been a disaster considering what expectations were coming off a Final Four season.
It's been a struggle, and then you see North Carolina at Clemson. We all know about the winning streak for North Carolina over Clemson in Chapel Hill. However, Clemson has had his fair share of success against North Carolina at Littlejohn. And now that Littlejohn has been renovated and that energy will be back in that building, that's going to be a tough test for the Tar Heels going on the road, taking on Brad Brownell's group.
Pierre Sarr whistled for his second foul, 13th team foul on Monmouth here in the second half. They started piling up fast and furious early in this half. 3 technicals. Jalon Hornbeek had to go to the bench after picking up a technical, his 4th foul. Chris Brady, another starter, picked up a 4th foul. King Rice got teed up. Luke May hits both free throws. Sophomore from Huntersville, North Carolina. Son of former UNC quarterback Mark May. Here's Sarr, originally from Senegal. And a reach-in foul on Brandon Robinson, the freshman from Georgia. We'll step aside. 7:56 to go here in the second half. Carolina in control.
Although I know what Virginia does, and everyone knows what Virginia does, but it's surprising to me. And Louisville's not a team that's a great offense, but the momentum that they had coming into this game off of that huge win, it's still surprising that Virginia's been able to go into Louisville and handle them so far the way that they have. Louisville started to make a little bit of a run in that game. Now a 14-point lead where it was 20, but still, you know, hats off to Tony Bennett and his staff for what they've been able to get their guys prepared to do.
Roy Williams calls the timeout as Nate Britt was trapped. We'll step aside as well. 7:52 left in regulation.
I believe everyone thought it would be as far as the top conference in college basketball in the country, and there's always going to be, you know, something to rival. I think that the Big Ten is very good this year. It was the Big 12 last year, but one thing that you've seen consistently, the ACC will always be mentioned in that conversation. It has always been mentioned in that conversation. Nice move by Tony Bradley right there. That's one you work on in the drills. You often don't get opportunities to do it in a game, but that was textbook.
Pierre Sarr down the lane, draws the contact, and a foul on Luke May.
When you're doing drill work out there with the coaches, this is exactly how you draw it up. Tony Bradley dribbled to the middle, spin away from the double team, and finish off the glass. And this is a young man in Bradley that the coaching staff from North Carolina is extremely excited about his potential. Talking to Sean May way back before the season started, and he was just raving about Bradley and his ability and what he thought he would be able to do this year. And the freshman has not disappointed.
Bradley on the season, 3 double-doubles, had a big block to seal a win against Tennessee as Carolina turns it over. We mentioned it in the first half. Bradley averaging 9.6 rebounds per game, but in only 17 minutes. And if you extrapolate those numbers to 30 minutes, he's a double-double guy.
Well, that's the same thing that everyone said about Isaiah Hicks last year.
That's true.
And now Hicks is getting those minutes, and the numbers really haven't increased that much. But, yeah, Bradley has been very, very special for Carolina this year. And, again, that depth. You just always seem to know that North Carolina is going to have depth up front as far as their skill players and guys that you can throw the ball to in the post and go get you a basket. They're always going to score points in the paint, and they're always going to offensive rebound.
Brandon Robinson picked up his third foul. Micah Seaborn to the line.
And we talked about the North Carolina recruiting. That's one of the reasons why big guys always want to go to North Carolina, because they know that they're not going to be a guy that has to just go screen for jump shots. They're actually going to get to play with their back to the basket and get the basketball in the post.
Substitutions for UNC. Berry, Jackson, Williams, Hicks, and Meeks on the floor for the Tar Heels. Seaborn gets the second free throw. He's on the floor along with Hornbeak, Robinson, Sarr, and James for Monmouth.
It's surprising to see Joel Berry and Justin Jackson back on the floor. And, you know, the game is not over. 6 minutes, 40 seconds left, of course, remaining. The starters are back on the floor for North Carolina, but I can't imagine Roy Williams would have his guys out there very long at this point, especially with an opportunity for them to get hurt.
Pierre Sarr, a couple of outstanding defensive plays. Seaborn, quick release, not there. And the rebound to Carolina and Hicks. Berry still does not have a field goal tonight. Does have 6 points, all from the charity stripe.
And they haven't needed him to shoot the basketball because of what Justin Jackson did in the first half and what their bigs continue to do right around the basket.
Corey, one of the more underrated parts of this Carolina team, the way these bigs can pass. Both Meeks and Hicks.
Kennedy Meeks has been a great passer since high school. I mean, he's been one of those guys that you've always talked about. And Meeks coming up with a big play on the other end of the floor, coming up with the save. The block shot from Hustle for Monmouth, coming out of bounds with the big block shot. You know, but again, and give Monmouth credit for continuing to compete in this game, but just outmatched by North Carolina, especially up front. You know, Justin Robinson is a special talent for Monmouth, but King Rice knew it was going to be a difficult task battling with the Carolina bigs up front.
Robinson has been quiet. He has been held scoreless in the second half after 16 in the first 20 minutes.
And that's what the good teams do. They adjust to whatever's hurting them in the first half. They adjust at halftime. And North Carolina defensively has come out and adjusted and taken away really the three-point looks for Monmouth, the easy looks anyway. And they've settled down on Robinson and made a concerted effort to keep him out of the paint.
Berry the lob to Jackson. 26 for Justin Jackson. Robinson down the lane, over the trees. Rebound Jackson, outlet to Kenny Williams. And that is knocked away. Good hustle. Down 22 by Jalon Hornbeak. Hornbeak's got 4 fouls. Jackson in the corner, guarded by Josh James. Coming up on 5 minutes to play in regulation. And contact down low. It's going to go against Monmouth, and that's the end of the night for Hornbeak. He's picked up his 5th foul. Friday, we just keep on bowling, starting with the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. It's Georgia and TCU at noon. Then at 3:30, the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl, Nebraska and Tennessee. 2 of the 10 winningest programs in college football history, meeting for just the 3rd time ever. Hornbeek fouled out with 17 points, coming off a career-high 25 against Princeton last week. Isaiah Hicks, 15 points, 8 rebounds, and boy, Roy Williams in all of Chapel Hill hoping a game like this can be a springboard for Hicks into conference play.
And they're going to need him in conference play because, of course, when you talk about the familiarity of these ACC teams playing against each other, it's often amazing how well teams do in the non-conference, and then once they get to ACC play, it becomes a struggle, and a lot of it has to do just with familiarity. Coaches know each other, they know playing styles, and it's just so much more competitive when you're playing against a conference foe.
Williams misses on the 3. How about Hicks diving on the floor? 21-point lead. Skip pass to Jackson. Inside to Meeks. Jump hook is short. Seaborn tracks it down. Seaborn will launch. Back iron. He's got 19, but it's taken him 20 shots to get there. And Jackson turns it over.
That's the one thing that North Carolina has done today is the 16 turnovers is now tied a season high for them. So that's the one thing I'm sure Roy Williams would like to clean up before they get into ACC play. But he can't really argue with much else as the Heels, with those 16 turnovers, have still put up 89 points with still over 4 minutes left to go in this game.
Is UNC the team to beat in the ACC this year?
In my opinion, they are. They'll, of course, the preseason poll picked Duke. But I've always thought that North Carolina was going to be a better team this year, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have Joel Berry running the point. I believe that Duke is extremely talented, more talented than anyone in the country, but they don't have that traditional point guard to kind of run the show for all that talent.
Chris Brady just picked up his 5th foul, so he's done, setting an illegal screen.
Speaking of Berry, we talked about the technical fouls. Joel Berry made all 6 free throws during that segment. Those 3 technical fouls, 6 free throws. Those are his only points on the night. 6 for 6 from the free throw line. So Berry hasn't had his normal scoring night, but yet still been effective initiating the offense for the Heels.
Justin Jackson will go to the free throw line. He's got 26. He'll try to tack on when we come back. Thank you very much. North Carolina looking to put the ribbon and wrapping paper on this one. And Justin Jackson has helped with the packaging. 26 points, 6 of 9 from distance.
And he did a bunch of damage in the first half. 5 3-pointers in the first half alone, and his ability to be able to get to the rim and finish. But at 6'8", he's often able to shoot over smaller defenders and catch them napping around the rim as well. So Justin Jackson continues to put on a great offensive display all season long for the Tar Heels. And Roy Williams has made it clear to us that he can even do more. He can even be more aggressive, and that's a scary thought for the remainder of the ACC.
And remember, North Carolina could be getting a reinforcement. Theo Pinson, who's been out all season, has resumed basketball activities. He fractured his foot and had surgery in October. And when Pinson comes back, it's another defensive presence for North Carolina and one more weapon off that bench for Roy Williams.
Well, and he was more likely going to be a starter at the shooting guard position this year. Kenny Williams has become the starter. But Theo Pinson is also a playmaker. He's not just a defender, he's a playmaker, a great passer. So when you put him in the lineup with this team, you now add that other element, but he's always going to take on the challenge of guarding the opposing team's best offensive player. And I believe with him, it makes North Carolina even more dangerous as they continue to go throughout ACC play. But the question becomes, how long is too long to wait for Pinson to get back and healthy before it's better for him individually just to redshirt him instead of, bringing him back in the middle of ACC play?
Stillman White, a crowd favorite at the Dean Dome. Bradley from 17, too strong. Tip back out to Kenny Williams.
So a fun fact, Stillman White actually played on that team 5 years ago.
That's right.
That beat King Rice's team here at the Dean Dome.
Tony Bradley on the putback. The freshman's got 10 points and 7 rebounds. 8 points and 7 rebounds.
Roy Williams loves to talk about how Stillman White not only started for Kendall Marshall in the Elite Eight, but played well in that game for North Carolina, in a game that they ended up losing. Kendall Marshall breaking his wrist on a team that many people picked North Carolina to win a national championship that year. And with the injury to Kendall Marshall, I believe kind of derailed that. But Stillman White did come in and play very well in that game.
Tough second half for Monmouth. They got to within 9 at the break after trailing by 19 in the first half. But 3 technical fouls early in the second half gave North Carolina free points at the line. And the Tar Heels very quickly turned that 9-point lead into a 20-point lead. It's now 23. And UNC on its way to a 12-2 record, getting ready for ACC play as Brandon Robinson will go to the line. Fouled by Louis Polari. He and cousin Daniel Polari, part of that bench mob a season ago. You don't see as many theatrics from the Monmouth bench, but you know what? The early season, if you've watched Monmouth at all, and this game notwithstanding, this is a big step up in weight class, even for a very good mid-major program. The focus, and rightfully so, has been on the court. This is a team I'm not sure I'd want to play Monmouth in the first round of the NCAA tournament if the Hawks were to get in.
Well, I know I wouldn't, because of their ability to shoot the three-pointer and the freedom that King Rice allows his team to play with to take those shots. And he's made it clear to us that maybe they're not good shots for Dean Smith. They're maybe not good shots for Roy Williams, but they're the best shots for his team in the way that they play, and in order for him to get his team to play defensively the way that they do. And I believe that this is going to be a successful team once they get into conference play. They're already 2-0 in conference. So as they continue on in conference, I believe Monmouth will be successful in a team that we have a strong possibility of seeing in March.
The walk-on brigade has made its way on the floor for North Carolina, and a foul.
That's not the walk-on brigade in North Carolina.
That's right.
Called Blue Steel.
Blue Steel.
See, come on.
Blue
Denise.
Steel. It's the victory cigar. That's what that is.
Exactly.
Austin Tillman at the line, junior out of Delaware. Monmouth takes on Ryder New Year's Eve, then opens 2017 at St. Peter's on the 2nd of January, followed by a tilt with Iona in a rematch of last year's conference championship game. Stillman White is bumped and fouled. Daniel Polari called for the foul. For North Carolina, they begin conference play New Year's Eve in Atlanta against Georgia Tech. Then on the road again against Clemson on the 3rd of January before the ACC home opener January 7th against NC State.
You see Florida State down there. That's going to be an interesting game. And, you know, when you watch Florida State this year, they are loaded with talent. Leonard Hamilton playing 11, 12, 13 players in their regular rotation, and they're picking you up 94 feet defensively, putting a lot of defensive pressure on you. Jonathan Isaac is one of the best freshmen in the country. Dwayne Bacon is playing extremely well. So does that translate to Florida State jumping into that top tier of the ACC this year? Back in 2012, Florida State won the ACC. 5 years later, they've got, you know, just as much talent outside of Duke, probably as much talent as anyone in the league. And we'll see if that translates to success for them, especially getting into the postseason.
Candler Coker gets blocked. Florida State struggled last year when we saw them with interior defense, and part of that because Kofor was out for the year, Ojo was out for the year. You get a guy like Ojo back, who's 7 foot, cut like marble, and built like Hercules. That will intimidate a lot of other teams from driving the lane.
And you also throw in Chris Kumaji, who is much improved at 7'4" this year.
He's bulked up a little too.
And he's playing very well. And it's not just that. I mean, when you look at the size that they bring in, Isaac starts, and he's 6'10", and not that he's a power guy, but he's a very good shot blocker with that length. But they have so much depth in the way that they play, but they're a much better offensive team this year than they've been in the past. Florida State was averaging over 90 points a game. They were second in the ACC in scoring behind North Carolina early this year. So Florida State is getting the job done on both ends of the floor right now.
Daniel Polari, the walk-on from Oceanport, New Jersey, misses both. His cousin Louis comes away with the rebound. Too strong. 1:03 to go. Following our game, the American Conference opener between Cincinnati and Temple. I'm not sure there's a team that plays tougher defense in the country than Mick Cronin's Bearcats. There's Shea Rush, and he's fouled, and he'll shoot two. So a chance for Rush, the freshman from Kansas, to get into the box score.
And no disrespect to Cincinnati, because I'm with you on their defensive prowess. You said you can't think of any team in the country that plays tough defense. Not West Virginia.
Different style. I'm talking about, listen, Press Virginia plays its own style, and they beat Virginia earlier this year.
Right.
But you watch Cincinnati, it feels like watching a rock fight. Now, offensively, I'll give you, it's not the most aesthetic style that you'll see, and that's probably putting it politely. But defensively, they make you work.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Mick Cronin's done a great job at Cincinnati, and I think they are a great defensive team. My boy Troy Copane out there doing his thing out there now, a senior. You know, I like Cincinnati a lot. I agree. I think they're another one of those teams that can make a strong run when you get to March, because it's going to be difficult to play against that defense, especially on a two-day turnaround, to have to prepare to play against something like that.
Fouls delaying the inevitable here in Chapel Hill. 42 plus seconds to go. Tillman back at the line. Last foul on North Carolina. Monmouth is about to see its school record, a 9-game win streak, come to an end. Can Carolina get to 100? Oh, they're going to have a chance to do it from the free throw line, and that's what's got this crowd amped up.
Absolutely. Once they got the basketball, you just heard the roar from the crowd. They wanted to see triple digits on the board. And now an opportunity at the free throw line. 3 shots. 3 to make 2. I like the odds.
You know what's on the line? A free biscuit from Bojangles.
Well, I need to make sure I get in that line.
Chandler Coker delivers. That's clutch.
Absolutely, especially with Bojangles on the line.
Bow time. 4th time this year UNC has hit the century mark. And that's a free biscuit for these fans. Coker knocks down all 3. 101 for good measure. His teammates will give him a good time about those.
Forget a good time. Get some Bojangles. That's all he needs.
Rush knocked it away, and another foul. Have you had a Bojangles biscuit?
Are you kidding me? I know where every Bojangles is on 85, 95, coming from Virginia through the state of North Carolina into South Carolina. Have I had a Bojangles biscuit?
You've got that programmed into the GPS.
I don't need to. I don't even need to put that in GPS. I know what exits they're off of, everything.
That's how you plot out your rest stops along the way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I plan my trips based upon the restaurants along the way.
Tillman kicks to the corner. Polari way off. And Coker comes away with the rebound. Bojangles biscuits for the Carolina faithful. UNC moves to 12-2. Roy Williams beats his old recruit King Rice, and North Carolina takes down Monmouth 102-74. Coming up next, Cincinnati and Temple in the American Conference.